Hi guys, in this video we are going to talk about the new RBI notification which has been issued very recently, and this notification relates to voluntary retention route for foreign portfolio investors. So guys, we are already aware about the different conceptual framework which are there in the country with regard to the foreign portfolio investment. But if you're not aware, don't worry, we are going to take a look at that particular framework in very brief terms in this particular notification also. But now there is a very good news for the foreign portfolio investors that they have a new route now, and this new route is voluntary retention route. This is in short termed as VRR route. So we are going to learn about this particular route. We are going to learn about the conceptual framework pertaining to the foreign portfolio investment, and at the end we are going to top it up with the important MCQs which can be asked out of this particular notification. So let's start our discussion on this notification. Now, before proceeding forward, let me quickly tell you about the excellent results that we have achieved over the past few years. Now, in 2017, in RBI Grade B, we had 27 final selections from our students, and in NABARD Grade A, we had 11 final selections from our students. And in 2018, we repeated the same success story, and in RBI Grade B, we had 70 plus final selections, and in NABARD Grade A, we had 26 final selections. Also in 2018, for SEBI Grade A examination, 150 plus of our students, they got the interview calls, and for IBPS AFO, 100 plus of our students, they got the interview calls. Now, if I talk about the different individual courses that we are providing, then they include RBI Grade B, SEBI Grade A, NABARD Grade A, RBI Assistant, and IBPS AFO examinations. Now, apart from running the separate courses for all those individual examinations, we are also having some combo courses which you can avail. So we have a combo for RBI Grade B, NABARD Grade A, and SEBI Grade A. We are also having a combo for RBI Grade B, NABARD Grade A, SEBI Grade A, RBI Grade B, and NABARD Grade A and SEBI Grade A. So we have all the requisite combos that you can choose from, and you can choose the appropriate course as per your requirements. Let me also tell you about our new course, which is very important for all the banking exams. This is the QRE course. QRE, that is quantitative aptitude, reasoning ability, and English. So all these aspects which are very important for all the banking exams, they are going to be covered in this particular course. So guys, this is the notification about which we are going to talk about in this particular video. So this notification is titled Voluntary Retention Route for Foreign Portfolio Investors Investment and Debt. So a new route has been allowed for the purpose of foreign portfolio investment and debt. So that's why this notification has been issued, and that is addressed to all the authorized persons who are dealing in the foreign exchange segment, and it's a very recent notification and has been issued on 1st of March 2019. So we are going to learn about the foreign portfolio investment route, the conceptual framework, and then we are going to systematically move forward. We are going to take a look at the background of this particular notification, why this notification it has been introduced, and we are going to talk about the key features of this particular notification and as well as the implications of this notification. Further, a related notification to this one has been also passed by RBI, and we are also going to take a look at the key features in very brief terms of that particular notification also. So without further ado, let's start our discussion. So let's start our discussion with the basic conceptual framework with regard to foreign investment in India. So guys, when we talk about the foreign investment, then this is any investment which is made by a person resident outside India. So a person who is a resident outside India, he is making any investment in India in the capital instruments. What are capital instruments? Capital instruments mean equity shares, debentures, preference shares, etc. So it can be in any of those instruments of an Indian company. So if a person resident outside India is investing in the shares of an Indian company, we are going to point it out as foreign investment for India. Now this foreign investment can broadly be classified into two. First is foreign direct investment, and the second is foreign portfolio investment. Now, if we talk about the direct investment as per the RBI norms, this is the investment which is made in the capital instrument by a person resident outside India in an unlisted company. So if you are investing in unlisted company, then it is going to be an FDI. or if you are investing 10% or more of the capital of the listed company, then it is going to be FDI. So for unlisted company, there is no bar with regard to the percentage terms, but for a listed company, in order to classify as FDI, the percentage has to be more than 10%. Foreign portfolio investment is any investment which is made by a person resident outside India in capital instrument where such investment is less than 10% of the paid up capital of a listed Indian company or less than 10% of the paid up value of capital instrument of listed Indian company. So if the investment is in a listed company and it is less than 10%, we are going to call it as foreign portfolio investment. So in very simple terms, if the investment is in a listed company, we are going to see whether it is more than 10% or is it less than 10%, and accordingly we are going to classify it as FDI or FPI. So if it's more than 10%, we are going to say it as FDI. If it is less than 10%, we are going to call it as FPI. But if the investment is in an unlisted company, it does not matter what is the percentage of investment, it is going to be just FDI. In an unlisted Indian company, it is always FDI. So this is something which we must remember about the conceptual framework of foreign investment, as it is very important from the examination perspective. So now let's jump back to our notification and see what does this notification has to say to us. Now this notification and the directions which have been contained therein, they have been issued as per the relevant sections of the Foreign Exchange Management Act of 1999. So RBI is associated with this particular law which provides about the foreign exchange management. Further, this notification invites a reference to the discussion paper. Now, this discussion paper which was released by RBI on 5th of October 2018, and it was titled as Voluntary Retention Route for Investment by Foreign Portfolio Investors. Now, this particular discussion paper has now been brought into the final shape through this particular notification. Further, another notification which was titled Hedging of Exchange Rate Risk by the Foreign Portfolio Investors under Voluntary Retention Route has been issued to supplement this one. So this notification has been supplemented by another notification which has also been issued very recently, and we are going to talk about that also in our discussion. So let's start with the background. So I discussed on the previous slide that the voluntary retention route, this particular discussion paper, it was issued by RBI on 5th of October 2018. So what did that discussion paper had to say to us? So it said that Reserve Bank, in consultation with government and SEBI, proposes to introduce a separate channel. So RBI wants to introduce a separate channel called the voluntary retention route. So we are now aware that RBI has introduced a new channel, and this channel is voluntary retention route. Now, why this channel? This channel has to be introduced to enable FPIs to invest in debt markets in India. Now, this is very, very important because we have to remember the core function, core focus of this particular channel. So we have to remember that it is being introduced to enable the FPIs to invest in debt markets in India. Now, broadly, this investments which are going to be made through this VRR route, they will be free of the macroprudential and other regulatory prescriptions applicable to FPI investments in debt market. So this concession is available for the investments made through this particular route, but this concession again comes with a condition. Now it says that provided FPIs voluntarily commit to retain a required minimum percentage of their investment in India for a period of their choice. The objective of the channel is to attract a long-term and stable FPI investment into debt market while providing FPIs with operational flexibility to manage their investment. So it is being proposed as a win-win game for both the Indian debt market as well as the FPI investors. FPI investors, they can have the operational flexibility because they are going to be exempted from the different kinds of regulations, and they would have to have certain kind of their relaxations with them. And at the same time, it is going to be a boon for the Indian market because now the FPI investors, they are going to be more motivated to invest in the Indian market. So this was the discussion paper which was issued. This was the theme of that discussion paper. Now let's see how this discussion paper has been given the final shape through this notification. So let's start with the basics. What is VRR? VRR is voluntary retention route. So this is something which we are now aware about. it is a new channel of investment available to FPIs. So this is again very simple. We have seen that this is a new channel of investment. And the focus is to encourage them to invest in debt markets in India over and above their investments through the regular route. So FPI, they have a regular route with them, but then again, we have come up with a separate route which is going to have its own certain conditions attached to it. And the objective is to attract long-term and stable FPI investments into the debt market while providing the FPIs with the flexibility to manage their investment. So this is the basic conceptual framework about VRR, which we must be aware about. We must be aware that it is a new channel. We must be aware that this is related to foreign portfolio investors and this is related to the debt market, and this is going to be a win-win for both the investors and the Indian debt market. So when was this route proposed? I believe we have already answered this question, that this route was proposed by the RBI's discussion paper issued in October 2018. Now at that particular time, the rupee was weakening against the dollar very sharply. So there was a need that we bring in more foreign inflows to tackle this weakening rupee. Also, there were certain talks about introducing a special NRI bond scheme to attract more dollar funds into the economy and stabilize the rupee. So the primary consideration was to bring in more dollars into the Indian economy so that the rupee can be stabilized, and this route has been introduced for this particular purpose. Now we are already aware that there are separate route pertaining to the FPI investment. Now that particular route has been referred to as the regular route. Now how this route is different from the regular route? So the guidelines which have been issued, they state that the investments which are going to be made through the VRR route, they will be free of the macroprudential and other regulatory prescriptions which are applicable to the regular FPI investments. So regular FPI investments, they have some terms and conditions attached to them, but the investments which are going to be made through the VRR route, they are going to be exempted from these particular restrictions or the requirements. But this restriction comes with a proviso. It says that the FPIs have to voluntarily commit to retain a required minimum percentage of their investment in India for a period of their choice. So you are allowed to bring in your FPI investment into India, but if you are aware about the conceptual framework, you would know that FPIs, they are very volatile, and if we bring in a scheme, it can in the short term bring FPI into India, but in the long run it may result into volatile inflows. So in order to tackle this, the RBI has come up with a minimum retention period. So it says that the FPI investment has to stay in India for a certain period of time, and this minimum retention period has been specified at 3 years, or this period may be as decided by the RBI. So we want to ensure that there is stability of the tenure of this investment which is going to be made. We do not want it to be highly volatile, so that's why this restriction has been introduced in this particular route. Now how much money can an FPI invest through this particular route? So there is a limit up to which FPI can invest through this particular route. We do not want this route to be used uncontrollably. We want that there should be a restriction on the investment to be made. So for this purpose, this is very important to recognize that for investment in government securities and for investment in corporate debt, there are separate limits. So the regulations state that the investment through this route shall be in addition to the general investment limit. So this is in addition to the FPI regular route which we are already aware about. Investments under this route shall be capped at rupees 40,000 crore for VRR government and rupees 35,000 crore for VRR corp per annum, or such higher amount as may be decided by RBI. So for the government securities, now what is VRR government? VRR government means the voluntary retention route for FPI investment in the government securities. So VRR government is with regard to the FPI investment in the government securities through this particular route. So for the government securities, the limit has been kept a bit higher, that is at rupees 40,000 crore. But for the corp securities, that is for the FPI investment in the corporate debt instruments, this limit has been set a bit lower at rupees 35,000 crore per annum. So this is something which we must be aware about, that there are two separate routes and there are two separate limits for these particular routes, and the limit is higher for the government securities route. Now, are there any other facilities for investors who are investing through this particular VRR route? Now, another facility has been given to the investors, that they are eligible to participate in repos for their cash management. So we are already aware about the repos. Repo simply mean that we use the securities for the purpose of meeting our borrowing or lending requirement. So repo is nothing but collateralized borrowing or lending. So when we are undergoing the borrowing or lending operations using the securities as a collateral, it is referred to repo and reverse repo operations. So the regulations provide that the investors, they can use these particular securities for the purpose of their operations, for the purpose of lending and borrowing. So this concession has been given to the investors, that they have the facility that they can always use these securities that they are investing in as a collateral for their borrowing or lending requirement. But the amount borrowed or lent under the repo, they should not exceed 10% of the investment under VRR. So you should not use it like uncontrollably. There has to be a limit, and this limit is 10%. Further, they can also participate in the derivative instrument to manage their risk. So this is primarily with regard to the hedging part, and we are going to discuss about the hedging part in the coming slide. Now a separate notification has also been issued by RBI, and this is with regard to hedging of the exchange rate risk by the FPIs under this particular VRR. So now when the FPIs, they are investing in their money through this particular route, let's face it, they have to face certain exchange risk because they are putting in dollars in the Indian economy. But the dollar rupee ratio, it can change in the future, and they may not get the adequate amount of dollars when they repatriate at certain point of time in future. So they have to hedge their exposure. They have to make sure that they do not lose on the exchange fluctuation front. So the purpose of this particular notification issued separately by the RBI is to hedge the exposure to exchange rate risk on account of the investments which have been made under this particular route. For this purpose, certain products have been permitted. Now these products, they are derivative instruments. They include forwards, options, certain cost reduction structures and swaps, and they should have rupee as one of their currencies. So if you are aware about the different derivative instrument and how we can use them for hedging, then this is very simple for you. If you are not aware, you should go back to your concepts and learn about them first. It will be very easy for you to understand this particular notification after that. Now if we talk about the period of this particular offer, so this route, this scheme has been introduced by RBI, and till when this scheme is going to be operational. So the notification says that it will be open from 11th March 2019 until the end of April 2019. So this is going to be the period of this particular notification or the new route which has been introduced for the FPI investors. So guys, now let's discuss some of the MCQs which can be asked out of this particular notification. So let's start with the first question. So this question is, foreign portfolio investment is any investment made by a person resident outside India in the capital instruments where such investment is less than -% of the paid up equity capital of a listed Indian company. So this question is probably asking about the framework with regard to the foreign portfolio investment in India, and we have to answer this limit in the percentage terms. So the options are 10%, 20%, 30% and 40%. Now we have already seen the conceptual framework pertaining to foreign portfolio investment, and we have seen that this particular limit has been specified at 10%. So the answer to this is going to be option number 1. Next question. Reserve Bank, in consultation with the Government of India and Securities and Exchange Board of India, that is SEBI, introduces a separate channel called the Voluntary Retention Route VRR 2. The options are: enable FPIs to invest in the equity markets in India, enable FPIs to invest in debt markets in India, enable Indians to invest in debt markets outside India, or none of the above. So guys, this voluntary retention route has been the core focus of this entire discussion, and we have seen that this has been introduced by RBI to enable the foreign portfolio investors so that they can invest in the debt markets in the India without much restrictions. So this answer is going to be option number 2. Next question. Minimum retention period for investment by FPIs through voluntary retention route VRR shall be. So we have seen that this FPI route for VRR has been permitted, and this route has some retention period conditions attached to it. So the minimum retention period with regard to the investments which have been made through this VRR, it has to be, the options are 1 year, 2 year, 3 years or none of the above. So this is a very straightforward simple question. We have seen that this period will be 3 years or as may be specified by the central bank. So the answer is going to be option number 3. Next question. RBI has recently come up with voluntary retention route to enable FPIs to invest in debt markets in India, which is not a feature of this particular route. There will be separate limits for investment in government securities and investment in corporate debt. Investment through VRR will be free of the macroprudential and other regulatory prescriptions applicable to FPI investments in the debt markets. Option number 3, FPIs investing through this route will not be eligible to participate in repos for their cash management or all our features. So we have learned a lot about this VRR route, and we have seen that all these are features except the option number 3, which says that the investment is not eligible for repo. Now this is incorrect because we have seen that the investment is eligible for participation in the repo market. So FPIs, they can participate under this particular route for their repo, reverse repo operations. So here the incorrect statement is going to be option number 3. Next question. RBI has recently come up with a voluntary retention route to enable FPIs to invest in debt markets in India. Through this route, FPIs can invest in options are government securities, corporate debt securities, both of the above or none of the above. So this again is a very simple question for us now. We have seen that investment through this particular route can be made in both these securities, though there are separate set of conditions which are attached, but it can be made in both these securities, that is government as well as corporate debt. So the answer is going to be option number 3. So guys, these are the solutions to the questions. So guys, this was all about our discussion. If you are having any query, you can mail us at hello@edutap.co.in, or you can reach us at 8146-207-241. You can call us or you can WhatsApp us. And I would also recommend that you visit our website www.edutap.co.in for regular updates and important content on the respective examinations. Thank you guys. I wish you happy learning and all the best from the entire team.